It is exactly 5:17 local time, and deep inside the massive combat direction center, the dim internal lighting remains very low indeed. The mighty aircraft carrier holds perfectly steady at 21 knots, while its massive bow cuts cleanly through the very calm water. Routine flight operations were scheduled to begin in 30 minutes, and there was absolutely nothing unusual appearing on the green radar scope. Suddenly, 5 distinct radar tracks shift all at once, indicating multiple unidentified contacts are now rapidly altering their previous flight course toward the ship. The professional air intercept controller leans forward in his seat as the rapid bearing changes confirm a new and aggressive trajectory. The group that had been paralleling the strike group at a distance is no longer holding its line, turning toward heading 090. They are currently flying at an altitude of 24,000 feet, with their speed at 480 knots and steadily increasing. Electronic identification confirms these aircraft are Iranian Air Force MiG-29 Fulcrums, operating without any radio chatter or using any civilian frequencies. The tactical action officer does not raise his voice, simply ordering his team to mark the shift and confirm the enemy intent. The powerful SPY-1 radar arrays provide high resolution, showing the 5 returns compressing into a very deliberate and tactical flying geometry. There are 4 aircraft flying abreast, with one trailing high, which is clearly not a weather drift or a simple navigation correction by their pilots. Their formation discipline is incredibly tight, at 82 nautical miles away, while the closure rate against the carrier group is rapidly increasing. The controller states flatly that the time to intercept at their present speed is only 9 minutes from this very specific moment. High above the deck, 2 FA-18E Super Hornets sit on Alert 5 status, with their professional crews already strapped into their cockpits. Maintenance crew chiefs step back carefully as the launch signal is passed, because no one runs and no one wastes any motion. The Iranian formation accelerates to 520 knots, while the E-2D Hawkeye, orbiting at 27,000 feet, confirms their steady descent. The contacts are now at Angels 19, which is a significant change because high-altitude parallel flight is usually just for observation. This descent narrows their tactical intent, yet the carrier maintains its original course, because a nuclear carrier does not ever flinch under pressure. The TAO orders the ship to set condition 3, and launches the Alert 5 fighters to meet the incoming Iranian threat head-on. Inside the busy hangar bay, ordnance crews move with purpose to secure all loose gear as the tension begins to rise significantly. On the escorting destroyers, the advanced Aegis systems shift from passive tracks to high-quality engagement solutions, though vertical launch cells remain tightly closed. Their weapons remain in a safe status, but are fully ready, as electronic support measures detect active radar emissions from the incoming MiGs. At 64 nautical miles, the N019 slotback signals begin sweeping across the fleet, showing that Iranian fire control radars have gone active. These radars are searching, but not yet locked, as the Air Wing commander keys the tactical net to order a standard intercept. He instructs the pilots to show presence, but avoid any escalation unless they are locked by the enemy fire control systems first. The catapults fire with a sudden burst of power, and white steam erupts as the first Super Hornet launches cleanly into the air. Afterburners glow brightly against the pale morning sky, as the second fighter follows seconds later to join its wingman in the clouds. Both Super Hornets climb aggressively to an altitude of 25,000 feet, while their noses point toward the inbound formation. The Iranian MiGs continue their steady closure at 58 nautical miles, and the Hawkeye recalculates the vectors for the interception mission. The Fulcrums are descending now to Angels 15, putting them much closer to a sea-skimming transition if they desire to attack. The strike group subtly adjusts its geometry as the cruiser slides 2 degrees to port and a destroyer increases its speed. They tighten the screen spacing around the carrier, yet there is no visible reaction from the island of the massive ship. This is a display of professional restraint, as the American fighters establish clear radar contact at 41 nautical miles away. The pilot reports a tally of 5, confirming the Iranian group as the Super Hornets hold their significant altitude advantage. The advanced AMRAAM missiles are armed but remain cold, as no fire control lock has been initiated by the American pilots. The Iranian formation shifts again, with 2 aircraft easing left and 2 moving right, while 1 aircraft remains high centerline. This offensive spread is clear at 33 nautical miles, Yet there is still no radio call from the Iranian military side. No identification broadcast is heard over the airwaves, as only the high speed of the approaching fighters speaks of their intent. On the carrier's flight deck, sailors glance skyward as faint silhouettes begin to form against the distant morning horizon. Close-in weapon system mounts rotate fractionally to signal readiness, while their internal motors hum quietly in a standby alignment mode. The tactical action officer watches the converging geometry, calmly ordering his team to log all electronic emissions from the approaching group. At 27 nautical miles, the intensity of the Iranian radar increases as one MiG-29 noses lower to 12,000 feet. This could be a mock attack rehearsal, but the lead Super Hornet maintain its steady heading without any aggressive maneuvers. The American pilots project power through their confidence as the two formations enter the beyond visual range missile envelope today. If either side commits to a hard radar lock, the engagement timelines will shrink to mere seconds for the young pilots. The air intercept controller transmits on the guard frequency, warning the Iranian aircraft they are approaching United States naval forces. He advises them to maintain a safe separation in international airspace, but there is no reply from the 5 incoming fighters. At 15 nautical miles, the 5 Fulcrums descend again to Angels 10, while keeping their formation very tight and incredibly disciplined. The carrier remains steady at 21 knots without any change in heading or escalation, only tracking every movement of the MiGs. At 12 nautical miles, the American pilots can finally see them clearly through their visors in the bright morning sunlight. They recognize the twin vertical stabilizers and the gray camouflage, with the Iranian roundels appearing very bright in the morning light. The distance continues to collapse between the two groups, yet nobody in the Combat Direction Center speaks about any worst-case scenarios. Every man and woman in that space understands what 5 fighters closing nose-on toward a carrier means for their collective safety. The Iranian jets are still coming closer as the geometry tightens inside the Combat Direction Center, where every scope is clean. Every radar return is sharp, and the 5 MiG-29s are no longer drifting inside a wide or lazy patrol arc. This descent significantly changes the tactical equation because radar clutter against the sea surface increases as the fighters fly lower. The 2 Super Hornets level out at Angels 22 while remaining slightly west of the massive aircraft carrier's steel bow. They act as the visible barrier between 5 inbound fighters and the strike group, with every weapon system fully armed. At 24 nautical miles, the Iranian formation splits as 2 aircraft ease left to widen their strategic tactical separation now. 2 others move right, while 1 remains high centerline, creating a wedge that is becoming a dangerous tactical pincer. The tactical action officer watches this without expression, ordering his team to mark the formation split for future data log. They track and calculate every movement while the electronic support measures spike due to the intense Iranian radar sweep today. The electronic warfare officer calls out that the N019 radar is operating at a much higher power level right now. This is no longer a broad search, but a focused scan as the lead American pilot keeps his jet steady. He can see them clearly now as dark gray silhouettes against the pale morning horizon, with faint but visible contrails. 5 contacts are confirmed visually as he reports their combat spread and notes there are no visible external stores released. There are no missiles separating and no smoke trails yet, but at 18 nautical miles, the first radar spike occurs. A sharp tone echoes inside the American cockpit as search radar transitions briefly into a more aggressive and dangerous track mode. This is not a full weapons-grade hard lock yet, but it is reported instantly to the tactical action officer today. The fulcrum is painting the lead Hornet for 1 second as the officer nods to acknowledge the intense probing action. Now fully inside the beyond visual range missile envelope, an R-77 launch would reach its target in 40 seconds exactly. The Super Hornets hold their formation and do not break because breaking under pressure signals fear to the watching enemy. Fear invites escalation in these tense moments, so the air intercept controller transmits the final warning over the ship radio. He states that the Iranian military aircraft are approaching U.S. naval forces operating legally within the international airspace boundaries today. There is only silence in response as the high MiG drops 2,000 feet to align with the lower 4. The 5 aircraft now fly level at Angels 10 in a unified wedge at a distance of precisely 11 miles. Carrier deck crew members pause mid-task while the MiGs become visible as distinct shapes with twin tails and wings. The CIWS mounts rotate fully into their tracking posture, creating a subtle motor whine that echoes across the carrier deck. At 9 nautical miles, the Iranian formation tightens while the Hawkeye reports the range is decreasing very rapidly right now. The lead Super Hornet adjusts 2 degrees to starboard, placing himself directly between the MiGs and the carrier's steel bow. This small but deliberate movement sends a clear message that anyone wanting the aircraft carrier must go through him first. At 8 nautical miles, another stronger spike occurs as the lead Hornet receives an intermittent track lock for several seconds. Engagement clocks are mentally ticking inside the combat center because 3 seconds is the threshold between a probe and commitment. The lock drops at 7 nautical miles as the Iranian right element edges lower toward the water at Angels 8. The center aircraft climbs to maintain an overwatch position, exerting layered pressure from both above and below the ship today. The carrier still holds 21 knots without turning or accelerating, as this restraint is intentional to avoid any tactical misreading. Sudden maneuvering can be easily misread as a preparation for launch, and those misreads are exactly what start massive wars today. At 5 nautical miles, the planes are now close enough for visual detail without the need for high-powered optics in air. The American pilots can clearly see the cockpit canopies and helmet reflections as the Iranian control surfaces are constantly adjusting now. The Iranian lead aircraft dips its nose briefly in an attack angle geometry. Then it levels out again very quickly today. The Super Hornet pilot does absolutely nothing, offering no flare or defensive brake, because confidence projects real power during tension. At 4 nautical miles, the Aegis systems aboard the cruiser compute firing solutions continuously for every single target in the air. The vertical launch cells remain tightly sealed while the weapons stay safe. But the tactical solution is already fully ready now. At 3.5 nautical miles, the MiGs accelerate slightly and their afterburners flicker momentarily in the bright morning light. Shock diamonds flare orange as the sea surface below ripples intensely from the powerful jet wash of the 2 formations now. This is knife fight distance in modern air combat, where a single missile fired here would reach its target very fast today. Inside the Combat Direction Center, the tactical action officer speaks calmly about escalating if a hard lock is sustained by them. At 2.8 nautical miles, the 5 MiGs compress even tighter, with their gray wings nearly overlapping in the air. This is a show of discipline and a show of nerve as the Iranian formation begins a subtle roll inward today. The distance is collapsing, and the sky is very quiet, until the Iranian lead aircraft banks hard to the left side. His afterburner ignites in a sudden flash of orange as the MiG slices across the nose of the lead Super Hornet. Separation is less than 1,000 yards as the American pilot holds perfectly steady without deploying any flares or climbing away. The second MiG mirrors the maneuver on the opposite side, crossing wide but equally close to the American intercept line today. The remaining 3 Fulcrums compress behind them as they descend further to Angels 6 above the glinting sea surface below now. This descent puts the fighters closer to a sea-skimming transition, shortening any radar warning and reducing the engagement window significantly today. At 2.1 nautical miles from the carrier, the center MiG rolls inverted and dives its nose down very fast. For 2 seconds, its flight path aligns directly with the forward deck as the radar warning receiver flashes a bright red. This is a full fire control quality lock, and the time to potential missile launch is now under 4 seconds total. The American pilot shifts his right hand closer to the throttle as his left thumb rests near the weapon select button. The lock sustains for 1 long second, and then 2, while the Combat Direction Center remains silent except for the tone. The 3rd second of the radar lock never comes, and the Iranian diving MiG suddenly levels out its dangerous flight path. It skims hard across the carrier bow at high speed, while giant shock waves ripple across the very calm ocean surface. From the flight deck, sailors feel the deep vibration before they even fully process the high-speed movement overhead this morning. Loose tie-down chains rattle on the metal deck, while a stack of light gear shifts slightly in its storage place. The Fulcrum roars past and climbs sharply after crossing the bow, without firing a single missile or a heavy gun. The remaining 4 MiGs widen their spacing simultaneously as they prepare to depart from the American Strike Group area now. This was clearly a coordinated choreography of military power, rather than a chaotic loss of control by the Iranian pilots. The two Super Hornets reposition instantly to slide back between the Iranian fighters and the carrier's own projected path today. Their radars remain active, while the engagement quality solutions are recalculated in real time by the sophisticated cruiser computer systems. If a single missile had left a rail, the American interceptors would have followed with their own weapons mere seconds later. Range is now 1.8 nautical miles at the closest point of approach as the MiGs finally begin to disengage. The tactical action officer speaks calmly over the internal net to confirm that no Iranian ordnance has been released yet. Above the carrier, the Iranian high element arcs wide and rejoins the formation to begin banking slowly toward the east. The Super Hornets shadow them at an offset, being careful not to pursue the departing aircraft too aggressively right now. Their mission remains one of deterrence rather than dominance, as the distance between them increases slowly but surely today. Electronic support measures confirm that radar emissions are decreasing as the N019 power levels are reducing significantly now. The carrier maintains its course at 21 knots because holding steady forces the other side to reveal their true intent. 5 nautical miles of separation are achieved as the Iranian formation reforms into a tighter echelon for their return flight. Afterburners flash briefly to push them eastbound, with no radio transmission or acknowledgement of the close encounter this morning. Inside the Combat Direction Center, the engagement clock finally stops as the immediate threat begins to fade away entirely now. Everyone inside that space understands how narrow the margin was between a simple demonstration and a massive detonation today. Every second of the intercept has been recorded from multiple angles to be stored as vital intelligence data forever. At 40 nautical miles, the tactical action officer issues the final call to resume a standard fleet posture once again. Flight operations resume as scheduled on the busy deck, while engine spool and steam pressure stabilizes for another launch. Routine returns to the carrier, but the memory of that narrow 4-second window will remain with the professional crew. If you enjoyed this intense story of naval professionalism, please like this video and subscribe to Navy Show.